Welcome back to another episode of the M57 built Nissan Patrol Y61. And I know this episode has been a long time coming, it's been a while. Anyway, this episode, as I promised, I'm going to take you through my first 5,000 kilometers with this car since the build, since I picked it up from the garage. And I'll tell you all the good stuff that happened, all the fun I've had with this car. And also, I'm going to tell you about some of the hiccups we had with the car. And I'm going to arrange this video in a chronological format. So I'm going to tell you events as they happened over time. So let's start with the first trip to Nanyuki, which wasn't so much fun. We took the car, started driving to Nanyuki. In the low bursts of speed, it was very powerful. It was scary. It was really, really accelerating because I think after the boost pipe and after Wawero tightened the air leaks, all the boost was going into the engine and the car was extremely more powerful than we had tested it earlier. And so that was fun until it got to the highway. And so every time you try and go beyond 80 kph, you're basically fighting with the car to keep it between the lines. And I had to stop. I had to stop trying to go fast. I just took it easy, 70, 80 kph, all the way to Nanyuki. Now, the other reason why the drive to Nanyuki wasn't so much fun was because the suspension setup was nose high. So basically, the front of the car was high like this. And that presents two issues. One of the main issues is visibility, given how high this car is. And the other issue I had was when your car is nose high, it means there's less pressure on the front wheels, and the front wheels are controlling the car, which means at a certain speed, you're not getting enough traction from the front wheels, which basically determine how the car gets steered and controlled. So that was a problem. And then the other issue to compound those two problems was the fact that I was running mud terrain tires. Mud terrain tires in general are meant for the mud. So you take them on tarmac, you have less surface area in contact with the tarmac. At high speeds, that's a problem. So those are my two main issues. And so despite that, we drove and tried to have as much fun as we could. And then somewhere along the way, I checked my temperature gauge and it was all the way high, like hot. So I stop and I'm wondering what happened. I get out of the car and I find that my coolant has been leaking. And so after some investigation, we discovered that the coolant was leaking through the overflow pipe. So for some reason, the coolant thought it was overflowing and it was just dripping out of the overflow pipe. So called Wawero. He told me to just let the car cool down, put in water in the radiator. That radiator takes a lot of water, almost 12, 15 liters of water. So fill it up with water, drove to Nanyuki. Fortunately, Wawero was in Nanyuki, and so he had a quick look at the car, and we determined there was an invisible crack. There's a little crack on the system, the cooling system. And so that little crack was letting in some air, and the system had an airlock, and that airlock was causing the coolant to spill over through the overflow pipe. And so that's what happened. And all the coolant went out, the engine overheated, we stopped, fill it up with water, it was fine. We got to Nanyuki, had it sorted out, and then we just enjoyed the day. And then in the evening, on our way back, we tried to mitigate the issue with the tires and the high nose by reducing the pressure all around. But at the front of the car, we reduced the pressure more than at the back, so that we try and bring the nose a bit lower. So that did two things. It made the car a bit more stable. You could feel more confident driving the car and steering and overtaking. So at least I could go up to 100. And the trip back was a bit more fun. So throughout that trip, and as I was using the car within Nairobi and just making short trips around Nairobi, I had one glaring problem. And the glaring problem was on my bi-turbo M57, the way the Sump sits, it gets very close to the front diff of the car. And that means if you go over speed bumps too fast, if you go over very bumpy terrain, the diff comes into contact with the Sump. So that was a problem waiting to happen. And of course, one of these days you're gonna go through a speed bump without seeing it. You're gonna hit a hole too hard. You're gonna go off-roading, and something's gonna happen to that diff. I mean, to that sump. So with the nitrocharger shocks and the Dobitson suspension, it kind of mitigated the problem, but still that danger was there. And speaking of danger, let's go quickly to our next trip. And that next trip was gonna be in South Coast, Diani. So that was an interesting trip because it presented an opportunity to test the car in high temperatures, to test the cooling capabilities of that aftermarket radiator, to test the engine basically. It's a stage 2 tune. Let's go and test it out in the hottest area in this country and see how it performs. So we saddle up one morning, and head down to Diani. Now, on the way, I had a slight hiccup with a bit of diesel leak, which we quickly addressed with just tightening a few clips here and there. That was fine. 15 minutes, we're back on the road and off to Diani. Now, the trip to Diani was awesome. It was just hassle free, hiccup free. It was fun. And on that trip, I was joined by two other M57 Discoveries, Discos. And we were three cars heading down to Diani fast and having fun. And especially considering I had already swapped out my tires for the ones I have right now, which are the BF Goodrich all-terrain tires. They're much more comfortable, much more stable, much more tarmac friendly. So they're fine. They're very comfortable. You don't get any wobble. You don't get any counter steering. They're fine. So there's a place called Samburu, about 100 clicks from Voi, where you branch off to the right, and then you can use the back roads into Kwale County and end up in Diani. So that's the route we took, and has a bit of off-road, has a bit of tarmac. It was just best of both worlds. So we were having fun. On our way back, something happened. Okay, so the danger I was talking about happened. I hit a speed bump. Let me just put it plain and simple. I hit a speed bump, and the sump got hit by the diff, the front diff, and it cracked, and all my oil spilled onto the tarmac, and it was ugly. So basically, long story short, I was towed to the nearest town, which is Samburu town, now on the main Mombasa highway. Parked the car on the side of the road, got some local mechanics. We had the sump removed. I took it to Mariakani. That was the closest I could get someone to weld it. And so had it welded there, gas, because it's an aluminum panel. And so brought it back, fixed it up, put in some new oil into the engine, and we were good to go. Now, I know when I say it like that, it sounds like it was just a simple job, 2 hours. No, that took the whole day. It literally took the whole day. By the time I was coming back, guys were hungry. People had set up cookout on the side of the road. It was crazy. So anyway, once we put the fresh oil back into the engine, we just switched on the car, tested it for leaks. It was cool, and we drove all the way back to Nairobi. No hiccups, no nursing the car. The car was just driven just like we were driving down. So just driven normally, and then we got to Nairobi safe and sound. But I knew that problem needed to be addressed. That sump cannot be that close to the diff. I had to address that problem one way or another. The car cannot go any higher. In fact, I wanted it to come a bit lower. So as we were looking for solutions, there were obviously suggestions left, right, and center. But Wawero found a slightly different sump from an E46 BMW that basically just clears the diff. Okay, so the part that hits the diff on the previous sump was like this much. Okay, so we found another sump that just clears the diff, so gives you that room to play around. And that sump was available locally. In fact, it was the one he was using on his car. Keep in mind that these discos don't have that problem with the diff, with the sump. I mean, it's okay. But those discos are running single turbo M57. I'm running the bi-turbo M57. So we got that sump. So we just unscrewed that sump from Wawero's disco, M57 disco, and put it on my Patrol, and it completely cleared that diff. And that problem was sorted out in one day. So I was so happy about that. And so that leaves me with just one problem that I have, and I just need to put the front of the car 2 inches down, maybe 1.5 inches down. I'll go 2 inches down and maybe put a spring damper, and maybe at the end of the day, it's going to be 1.5 inches down. So that will level out the car, or maybe put it a bit nose heavy, nose down a bit, so that when you have maybe passengers and some luggage, it can just go flat. That should improve my control of the car, stability. It's really doing well as you speak. I just want it to be slightly better. Anyway, those are the two major trips that we did. Of course, we did some other shorter trips. Actually, I did one to Kisumu, no hiccups. We just went, did our thing, came back, and then some other short trips to Narok, Nini, uneventful. So just going and coming back. So those were the two major trips. Nanyuki, where we had some problems, uh, and then Mombasa on our way. Diani on our way back, we had that little problem. But otherwise, the engine has been excellent. It's so much power. It gives you so much fun and confidence to drive and to overtake. You can just get out and just zoom past 4 or 5 trucks on the road, go back, and then keep your speed limit and be a good citizen. So now, what are my key takeaways from this video? I know one that you guys want to hear more than anything is gonna be fuel consumption. Now, like I had mentioned earlier, we did have some fuel leakage on 2 of the trips, so which two different clips at 2 different times, which we needed to just do a bit of tightening. So I'm not sure I can tell you with certainty that that's the actual final result for fuel consumption, but for now I'm getting between 9.5 to 10 kilometers per liter. So 9.5 to 10 kilometers per liter, and that's not with any kind of moderate driving. That's just being a bit crazy sometimes and having fun and testing out the car and its capability. For that, I'm getting that 9.5 to 10 kilometers per liter. But in terms of the engine, the performance, the gearbox, the propeller, four-wheel drive, everything works immaculately. I've not had any problem with that in the first 5,000 kilometers. So now, I guess you're wondering what's next with the M57 Patrol. I think now maybe just take it on a few more trips, and maybe we do some upholstery inside, maybe some paint work. If you're trying to sponsor anything or any more work on this car, pesa imeisha, my guys. So if someone wants to sponsor upholstery or paint work, feel free to contact me and we can come up with something. But for now, that's been it with the M57 Nissan Patrol. Those are the few hiccups I had on the first 5,000 kilometers, but most of it has been fun. It's been 95% fun and 5% trouble. So that's it. That's the 5,000 kilometers. I hope I've not left anything out of this. If you have any questions, actually, just leave them down in the description. In fact, the next episode for this series is going to be a Q&A where Wawero is going to be seated beside me, and we're going to be answering all the questions you guys have been asking from the first episode up to this one. So any questions you might have that were not answered, you can try maybe and ask them in the comment section below, and we're going to try and answer those in a week's time. Okay, so I'm going to try and make these videos weekly. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you had fun. I hope I answered most of your questions. Anything you wanted to know, I hope that was as fun for you as it was for me to shoot this video. Thanks for watching. Good luck.